It's time for Malcontented Minutes. It is time where you get to pick the news. Mods and admins, go ahead and drop the link over into the comments. Go ahead and drop the link to the poll. A poll? Yes, there is a poll. Jennifer and I have 20 minutes. We have 10 stories that are teed up. We don't stick hard and fast to the 20 minutes, but we're going to try because the show's running a little over tonight. So we're going to try to keep it squeezed. And we get 1 minute to tell the story, 1 minute to unpack the story. You, the viewers, get to vote on the story that you want Jennifer and I to talk more about for a little bit at the end of the show. So mods and admins, go ahead and drop that link. Make sure you do it across the different channels. Jennifer, you're in the lead position tonight. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, we're starting the timer. There we go.
So this has a little bit of a Washington-Seattle connection. So an Indigenous lawyer has been nominated as the solicitor of the Interior Department. It was announced yesterday that Robert Anderson, member of the Boy Fort Band of the Minnesota Chippewa or Ojibwe peoples, has been formally nominated for the solicitor position. Anderson has served as the Interior's principal deputy solicitor since January 20th, 2021, the start of the Biden administration. Anderson actually worked at the UW as a law professor for 2 decades and directed our Native American Law Center. He has also held visiting positions at Harvard. He has co-authored a couple really important texts, including Cohen's Handbook of American Indian Law, and previously served as the Associate Solicitor for Indian Affairs during the Clinton administration. Them Republicans aren't going to like another Indigenous person in the Interior Department. You know, those Indigenous people don't know how to make decisions in the best interest of their own people, David.
What a crazy concept. The original first peoples of the nation being responsible for taking care of the lands and resources of the First Nation, of the nation, I should say. What a concept. I know, Jennifer, that I approve. And with that I'm going to take the liberty to say that's all I've got. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to story number 2. All right, so let's reset the clock. Story number 2, 28-year-old Joseph Russo is charged with multiple hate crimes after being arrested for 3 different attacks on Asians in Brooklyn, New York.
And this one man, they say, is responsible for a month-long xenophobic, anti-Asian crime spree here in Brooklyn. And later on today, that man, whose name is Joseph Russo, will be in front of a judge facing a slew of charges here at court. Now, the most recent attack happening on Monday in Sheepshead Bay. Detectives say this is the 28-year-old caught on camera outside the J&R supermarket moments before shoving a 77-year-old shopper to the ground without provocation or saying a word. Also, last month, this disturbing scene playing out in Midwood along a row of retail shops. This is who police say is Russo, randomly grabbing a 32-year-old Asian woman by the hair and struggling with her, again, not saying anything or having any prior interaction.
Jennifer, you got 55 seconds.
So did the police say he was just having a bad day? I'm just curious. What a douche. Like, who does that? What an actual douchebag. Back again to, I hate to say it again, but them damn white men of a particular age and generation have some real issues with white privilege and shit that they need to work through, come to terms with.
He totally has like the douchebag swagger in that first video clip.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying all white men. So before somebody says not all men to me, because I hear it a lot, I'm saying there are a particular like subset of white men of a particular generation, actually across multiple generations, that are still so invested in this idea of white supremacy and entitlement that this is the way they behave.
All right, Jennifer, story number 3.
Oh, Virginia. I got to find my story notes now because I'm out of order here. So Virginia becomes the first state in what's considered the South to ban gay and trans panic as a murder defense. So yay, Virginia, but how was this ever an acceptable defense to murder prior to this is beyond me. Virginia is actually the 12th state, including Washington and California, that no longer permits people charged with killing a person who identifies as LGBTQIA to receive a reduced sentence because of that. The bill was introduced by Representative Danica Roem, and Governor Ralph Northam signed it into law last week. It's just such a weird thing to me to consider that that was ever a reasonable defense in the first place, but I'm glad that at least 12 states now have done away with it.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
Why? I didn't know this was a thing. And like, they have to make a law to say you can't use this as a defense. That's where the bar is at? I like Jennifer, this was like when you shared this with me today. I'm horrified. I'm happy this was passed. But I'm horrified that some lawyer somewhere was like, you panicked because they were gay. And we're gonna get you a lighter sentence by coming up with this. You panicked. And some judge, and then probably some appeals court said, that works.
Yeah, I know this was like mind-blowing to me that this was even a thing, but here we are.
And they say they're the snowflakes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm moving on to story number 4. Today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, and we have a story about that later tonight. Some of you may know the significance of the pink triangle and how the Nazis used that to identify LGBTQ prisoners. Prior to Hitler becoming chancellor in 1933, Germany had a thriving gay culture, and Berlin was considered the gay capital of the world. Starting in 1935, up to 100,000 people were arrested. About 15,000 of those ended up in concentration camps. Their suffering, though, didn't end at liberation. Sadly for many, it just continued. Some even found themselves going through the courts a second time, being arrested for what was called antisocial behavior and being in prison. It wasn't until the 1970s when these survivors were acknowledged. The 1966 musical Cabaret helped raise some awareness to this, along with the Mel Brooks movie To Be or Not to Be. So on Holocaust Remembrance Day, it is proper to remember all victims of the Nazis, including the LGBTQ community. Jennifer, you have 45 seconds.
So I think I'm going to, since we're doing a light story on our little story on this a little later, I think I'm going to save my commentary for then, so I don't go over and repeat myself.
Fair enough. We will go ahead and reset the timer and move on to story 5.
Hey guys, guess what? Even though Joe Biden got elected, there's still a lot of problems at the border, like tens of problems. So according to the Washington Post, March of 2021 was the busiest month at the border in nearly 2 decades, with the U.S. taking in 172,331 migrants into custody. This includes almost 19,000 teens and children that arrived without their parents. And compared to March of 2020, this number is nearly 3 times higher. Customs and Border Patrol notes that many migrants are part of repeat crossing attempts, and some were previously expelled under the Trump administration's emergency health order called Title 42. And while Biden has publicly addressed the ongoing crisis, this begs 2 very important questions. Why are people migrating in such huge numbers? And what role does ongoing U.S. intervention in Latin America play in these mass migrations?
Jennifer, I'm so like you were 60 seconds to the dot. It was impressive.
Thank you.
You had 2 Category 5 hurricanes devastate Latin America within just a couple of weeks apart of each other. Nicaragua, a country close to my heart, actually didn't get it as bad as Guatemala and Honduras to their north, which were just devastated. The other thing that's happening is a lot of these countries depend on tourism, and COVID has absolutely gutted that. Not to mention they've had a relatively impotent COVID response in Latin America for a litany of reasons that I can't unpack in 60 seconds. The other thing is you just have a lot of dirtballs that are lying to desperate people going, hey, the border's just wide on open because Joe Biden's president. And they're so desperate that they believe it. So they're going into debt for thousands upon thousands of dollars to find it's all a lie. And that's my unpack. And I'm going to go ahead and remind you that there's a poll. Mods, admins, go ahead and drop the poll link one more time. We're halfway through the lineup. If we've covered a story and you're like, I want David and Jennifer to unpack that story more, you could vote. But we always like to say you should wait until we've given you the full meal deal. But we can go ahead and drop the link into the poll one more time so people know where it is, and you can see those list of stories coming up. You may look at that list and go, I want to vote for this one now. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and start the timer and go to story number 6. Amazon's challenging hundreds of union ballots in Alabama, and it sure looks like the measure is failing. There are reports tonight, as we predicted, Amazon's challenged hundreds of ballots in the vote for unionization in Alabama. The New York Times reported that about 55% of employees participated, so about 2,800 people voted. It is worth noting, not all employees were eligible to vote. There has not been a breakdown of eligible voting employees that actually voted in that number. Early reports are indicating that the measure is failing by a very wide margin, as much as a gap of 2-1. However, both sides are making it very clear that they are lining up for a long legal battle. Jennifer, you get some bonus time.
5 words, people. 5. Count 5. Seize the means of production. Capitalism sucks. Worker exploitation. This is divisive. These tactics were intentionally divisive that were deployed by Amazon to create conditions like this. And now you're going to have increased animosity in the workplace. You're going to have people not getting the protections that they need. And Amazon and Jeff Bezos in particular are going to continue to line their pockets. That's all I got.
All right. So we'll roll you over then to your story number 7.
Yeah. What kind of asshole pays their former employee in pennies? Well, let me tell you, this one asshole in Georgia did.
After waiting for months, a man in Georgia finally...
you're going to play the clip, sorry.
After waiting for months, a man in Georgia finally got paid from his last job, delivered to him in pennies, dumped in the driveway. What a class move, right, by his former boss. Andreas Fladden left his job at an auto repair shop in November, waited a long time for his final check, even contacted the Department of Labor, that is, for help. He finally got paid $915, all in pennies, dumped in the driveway, covered in some kind of oil or grease. Now he spends every night in the garage, cleaning them off one by one.
I think that's going to be a lot of work for money I've already worked for. It's going to be hours upon hours of just trying to clean this money up just so it's even able to be spent. It's definitely not fair at all.
Jennifer, I've reset the clock because I hit the button too soon and we just messed it all up. So I'm sorry. You can go.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say you covered most of it, but I just want to add that when he left the pile of pennies in the yard, he also added a sweet little note for his former employee that said, fuck you, and this pile of pennies. But Coinstar kind of jumped in, heard about the story. They came and actually picked all of the coins up and then cashed them in for the man, and he got his paycheck in cash instead of coins. But I just want to point out the name and location of this place in case you're in Fayetteville, Georgia, or somewhere in that area and need automotive work. Don't go here. This is the pennies came from Miles Walker, owner of the OK Walker Auto Works Body Shop in Peachtree City, Georgia. Don't use that man's business if you're in Georgia and your car breaks down. Find a different place. I'll even help you. Just message me.
Peachtree City would be outside of Atlanta, if I remember my Georgia geography. I know we're a little over time in this story. I just want to say I loved that the talking head broke the fourth frame and had a malcontented moment, I should say, when he made this little editorial comment about, what a guy or something like that. Yeah. I just busted out laughing the first time I saw that clip because it's like I'm thinking to myself, Jennifer, there's no way that was on the teleprompter. He
No.
read that story and was just like, ow, my brain. All right. If you want us to unpack that more, you can. We'll talk about it more. Let me go to story number 8. The Kitsap Sun is reporting that a 61-year-old Silverdale man who lives in the Vintage at Silverdale Senior Apartments was tripping balls on acid and went on a rampage. According to officials, they received an automated 911 call after a fire alarm was pulled. When police arrived, a chair was smashed through a 4th floor window. The police report extensive damage to furniture, fixtures, and 9 broken windows. The unnamed man was taken to St. Michael Medical Center where he made threats of violence, rape, and used racial slurs. His wife said that he frequently uses acid, but may have taken a little bit too much, and he got some bad stuff. He is booked in the Kitsap County Jail.
Open the doors of perception.
Meanwhile, look at me. Huh?
You come here to kill me. Both are killed.
Meanwhile.
What do you even say to that? The dude clearly had a bad trip. Well, you and I were talking a little bit earlier about like he's threatening violence, rape, and hurling all these racial slurs, which has to be somewhere already within his character and part of his true self, because I don't think you can just blame that on a bad acid trip.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, but maybe the dude should stop tripping balls on acid, or maybe check where he's getting his supply from, because that clearly was not good shit. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I wish there was video to this story. I really do.
Yeah.
I could just picture the police pulling up to a senior living apartment building thinking they're on a fire alarm call. And then a chair comes flying out of the 4th floor window to the sound of shattering glass. All right, Jennifer, with that, you can start story number 9.
I was a little conflicted using this as my feel-good story because I think part of it is a little bit gross, but I'm kind of glad they made amends and the people who got the opportunity to share their creativity and performance got to do it. So on a recent segment of The Tonight Show, TikTok star Addison Rae showed Jimmy Fallon how to perform some of the most popular TikTok dances. Not long after, Fallon and Rae came under fire for not allowing the actual curators and performers to demonstrate their work. All of them except one were BIPOC. After increasing backlash, however, Fallon actually brought the creators and performers onto The Tonight Show to discuss how they developed the dances and then performed them. While the initial oversight is still super cringeworthy, I will give credit where credit is due, and Fallon and The Tonight Show get some for attempting to right that wrong. So congratulations to the creators and performers for getting to share their own work and get the credit for it that they deserve.
Yeah, I like this story. It's a good story. Jimmy Fallon comes across as the kind of guy who should know better in the first place, but I always like it when people in these positions don't dig a hole for themselves and just double down on the wrong or hope that it goes away. And so for that, I will say that Jimmy Fallon did the right thing. Jennifer, I wouldn't normally do this on the air. What's been happening? You've been wiggling through the show, not like wiggling like this, but like wiggling over. And I need you to take like one step over closer to your mirror. There you go. You're almost getting covered up by our comet stream when we go full frame. And on the subject of I'm sorry?
I'm super fidgety tonight, so I've been moving back and forth.
You are framed much better now. And with that, we're going to go ahead and reset the timer, and we're going to go to story number 10. Story number 10. Enjoy some ringtail lemurs at the zoo.
Welcome, giant pansies. Please feel free to bask in my glow.
Definitely a squirrel.
Yep, squirrel.
Jennifer, you got 60 seconds.
I don't have anything to say. How do you even follow that? They're adorable. However, I would have liked to see you perform the I Like to Move It song from Madagascar. That would have really put like the cherry on top of the icing for me.
On the subject, go ahead. Sorry.
And probably others. Others would have enjoyed that too. I'm sure.
On the subject of something like that, that would probably be a really fast way to get knocked off the air. Jennifer, remember we did the UFC story and we got knocked off the air on Facebook when we did the UFC story?
Yeah, I do
Facebook
remember.
just sent their apology letter to us 2 days ago. By the way, I forgot to mention that to you.
Whatever, Zuckerberg.